need to believe to create a cult like following. Law
Yeah.
27. Everybody on this live needs to read this book. This book is so dangerous, they do not allow it in penitentiaries. Okay. So if it's that dangerous, we all need to be abreast of what's going on so that we can understand when this is happening. And
So
people, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so Cage, I know you, and we've had many great conversations. Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. Please make sure that we're gifting Felice and gifting Cage. I know you're on the Red Cross side. I get that now, right? I understand that. But so the conversation that Felice and I had just prior to you joining, Cage, was like, I'll ask you, do you want white men as part of this fight? Because, I don't blame black women for saying, I'm done. I am done. So do you want white men as part of this fight?
At this point, there's no other option. I'm going to be honest. We are to the point where, and I'm going to tell you from my personal perspective, I can't speak for anybody but me. I feel so incredibly betrayed by all the people who went out and claimed that they were going to vote this way, that went out and marched, petitioned, went to town meetings, were on Zoom calls. It's kind of like, and I did a video on this. I talked about how, we've seen this for 100 years, the suffrage movement, and then again during the civil rights movement, and then again during the women's 70s movement, and then 2 years ago, and then this past election. It's to the point now where if you think our trust was eroded before, it's gone. I mean, we don't trust anything anymore because we're not looking at people's words and actions. We're talking about patterns. I did a post 2 years ago right here on TikTok about we're looking at historical patterns. So at this point, somebody has to fill the void that we are leaving behind, because if someone doesn't, all of us are going to be in the same boat. Now, as a black woman, I'm always going to be down there with indigenous women. We're always going to be at the lowest part of the cast. We understand this until things change. But if white men do not get a grip, you're going to start to find out that the lines between race and class will start to become blurred for those who are not rich. And this is what people are not understanding. We see this because this is what we've been subjected to, believe it or not. And this is going to sound strange to a lot of people. We as marginalized communities already live under an authoritarian and dictatorship type of system. People don't get that. They don't understand. We are trying to save you all from this so this doesn't become so widespread that then no one can get out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cage, I always appreciate your perspective on things, and I think thanks for being here. And I think what you said, I think, is relevant. That everybody who is in opposition to this, needs to prove it. So less talking about it, more being about it. But we all need to be in accompliship to fight back against this BS, because no one group, it's been proven. There's one of the faults of the left is there's a lot of pearl clutching, and a lot of, if it's not perfect, you sacrifice the good in the quest for perfection. And that's kind of what we saw in this past election. But thank you for jumping in today, my friend. I appreciate you.
Can I add one more thing real quick? And
Sure.
This is something, and I'm landing this plane. Steve, you and I have talked about this before. We are the blueprint, everybody. What they do to us, they know works, and then they implement it with everybody. You need to think about that. For those of you who are sitting there on the fence, afraid, what they've done to us, they will do to you.
So well said. Thanks, Cage, as always. I appreciate you. See you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
She's awesome.
Wait, what did you just said something and I wanted, God, what did you say? Oh yeah, the pearl clutching on the left, and you said something that kind of rhymed. I can't remember what the exact words were, but I agree. I mean, I think like it's called coalition, right? Like I wish we lived in a Scandinavian democracy. I wish we had many political parties. Everyone could get in where they fit in, and then we could join together to form coalitions, right? Like that would be ideal, but unfortunately American politics doesn't work that way.
Yeah, like in the quest for perfection, we ignore the good, or we miss the good in the quest for perfection.
Well, yeah, or just like the pearl clutching or the purity testing on the left,
Right.
like there's
Right.
always this, well, that they're not left enough to be left, like I don't agree with them, or the Democratic Party, like, because I don't agree with the moderates, so I'm not voting. Like we have seen now in this election what happens. I watched people go around for months on the internet, leftist creators on TikTok for months, go in and out of live saying, I'm not voting for Kamala. I don't
I know.
like the Democrats. I'm not voting for Kamala. And particularly identifying the Palestinian G side as one. Well, that was one, let's say that was one of the threads I
Right.
heard the most, I think is fair to say, because people had many different reasons, but that was a thread I heard the most. Like, I encourage anyone who was on that BS to really do research. If you are participating in the American supply chain, if you are living in the suburbs, you're complicit in G side. Like, if you, like, that's why I disappeared into South America.
Yeah.
Like, if you're under the impression there's one G side going on, then you are underinformed, right? And I'm going to show this on my show today. I won't even play it, but there's a video of our new Secretary of State, right? I can't tell you the leftist I heard saying Anthony Blinken is the devil. I don't like Anthony Blinken either. I'm left of left. I am a stone's throw from communist. Like,
You
what I'm
are,
saying?
yeah.
Like, but that does not matter. Like, how you consolidate power, how we move forward, how we stop the onset of authoritarianism is by voting together. I just encourage everyone to watch, let's say, Ro Khanna or Bernie Sanders,
Yeah.
right? Like, you have to win a general election, the candidate has to move back to the middle. It's disgusting. I don't like to watch it. I don't like to hear it. But you have to appeal to the middle. Change happens in the middle, right? And if we continue on the left to let that be disqualifying, when a candidate in the general election starts moving and appealing to the moderates that now we no longer have your vote, we will continue to lose elections. Like, that's what I need people to see. And Marco Rubio in the halls of Congress, I'll play this on my show later, but they caught, someone was asking him and saying, oh, what are you going to do for the Palestinians? And he said, are you recording? I want people to hear this. I want people to hear this. I'm not doing anything. He's like, if Palestinians are unalived, it's Hamas's fault. Like, if you think the Palestinians were in a bad situation, right? And it's also for the fake libertarians on the right who were into the no new wars. Trump's going to de-escalate. They are not. Trump put a neocon warmonger as Secretary of State who said yesterday, I want people to hear this. Any unalivings, that's not on the U.S. And we're going to continue supporting Israel and whatever they want to do, basically. And then on top of that, I don't know if you guys know Mike Huckabee, who's now
Oh,
like ambassador to Israel. I mean,
yeah.
he is basically at the final solution for the
Totally.
Palestinians. I mean, that's how extreme that man is. So by apathy, by saying, I don't like what the Democratic Party has done, I'm not voting, right? And also by saying that publicly, did you influence anyone else? I don't know, but we're at a situation now where we've lost the popular vote. I don't like voting for the lesser of two evils either. I'm an idealist. I am a true leftist / communist. I hate the American empire as
Yeah.
much as anyone else, I promise. But what we have to realize is the only way to pull this country back left is through incremental change.
It's funny. I say that a lot. I'm probably not as far left as you, but close. I would, I have this joke with Erica who came up earlier about how I consider myself a progressive, and a progressive in American politics is status quo in the rest of the world because they have the things that Americans progressives have to ask for, like universal health care, like background checks on firearms, like raising minimum wage, like paying teachers more, like overfunding public education. And you're right. And sadly, the progressive voice in America seems like it's loud because we talk about all these things that are so important for our society, again, like universal health care. But the moderates make the machine run. It's the people in the middle on both sides of the political spectrum. Our country is center right politically. We have to accept that.
Yeah.
That's just who we are.
And moving right.
And moving further right. Exactly. And moving further right. So to
And I
claw
hate
that.
it. I hate it as much as everyone else. I hate
Yeah.
it.
Me too.
But how do we move 1 inch to the left? How?
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying?
exactly. And it doesn't take much because the margins are still slim in these elections, especially in those swing states. I'm tired of having every single election come down to the 7 swing states. But that's the circumstance that we're in. And I was hopeful that this last election, again, Russian propaganda, because they kept telling us who to hate. I was hopeful that this last election there was going to be a chance to expand the map. I bought into the whole Iowa poll that came out 5 days before the election. I bought into
Did
the
you,
fact.
can I talk to you? Can I just ask you, did you see what Trump posted last night about that? This
No.
is true authoritarianism. Like, I just want to say, so, what's her name? It's not Seville. I have it in I have it in today's Monday outline. It's like the top of the clips. I'll pull it up. What's her name? The woman, she's a famous pollster. She's one of the, here, I'll
Oh, the
find
woman
it for
from
you.
Iowa?
She's, it's not Seeger. It starts with an S. The woman whose poll that is. She's a famous pollster.
Yeah.
Here, I got it. Let me scroll
I'm
down.
sure our
Almost there.
chat will come up with
Almost
it.
there.
Um,
I got it.
J.N. Selzer.
It's
Selzer.
Selzer. Thank you, Ann Selzer. Trump last night on social media called for an investigation into her.
Of course.
Says she's an op.
Of course.
Because and that poll was like she needs to be investigated. I mean, this is true. This is fascism. That's yeah. Here we go. And Ruth Ben-Ghiat, who's my favorite historian from NYU, she wrote the Strongman book about authoritarianism. Ruth Ben-Ghiat was commenting on it. She said, "Welcome to the authoritarian weaponization of the state and waste of taxpayer money on vanity crusades. Anyone who seems to criticize the leader or produce results that he does not like must be investigated." This is what Trump wrote yesterday. A totally fake poll that caused great distrust and uncertainty at a very critical time. She knew exactly what she was doing. Thank you to the great people of Iowa for giving me such a record-breaking vote, despite possible election fraud by Ann Selzer and the now discredited newspaper for which she works. An investigation is fully called for. Makes you wonder where we are on the list.
Well, I know.
What
I
are
mean,
we,
and
10,000?
again, history repeating itself, right? Here it is. I mean, it's so unhinged. You have one pollster that comes out with what they saw in the electorate. I think I mean, all these mistakes that were made were women underrepresented. Were we not getting enough insight as to whether or not women were going to show up at the polls? And you did a really great breakdown last week about how the gap is not as big as people want to think it is. It's not this 15 million votes. It's more like 2 million, roughly speaking, or whatever the number is.
It's like going to be like 2.7 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, by the time it's all
projected,
counted,
really.
right? It's something like that, under 3 million votes, which again speaks to the rise of authoritarianism. And this is the world that we live in now. And you mentioned this earlier, and I'm glad you brought this up. Incumbents in power lost in 2024 and in 2023. So the party that was in power governing during COVID have all lost. And that's not something that we can ignore. Yeah.
Exactly.
We can't ignore that because that's the kitchen table politics, right? We have a joke in our community. That's the price for a gallon of eggs. That's what.
Anytime we say kitchen table politics, now I just picture Katie Britt at that table after the State of the Union. Do you remember? That was the scariest thing I've ever. The rebuttal to the State of the Union, Senator Katie Britt. She was in her kitchen in where is she from? Alabama. That was one of the most disturbing rebuttals to the State of the Union I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like she embraced The Handmaid's Tale in a strange
Yeah.
strange way, right?
I was did they? Yeah, it was like a robot had taken her over.
Yeah, but so
Trad
this
wife.
is
That
so
was our
this is-
trad wife future.
exactly exactly. So this is kind of the whole point. And once again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but this goes back to Russian propaganda. This is the ability for them to manipulate the electorate, thinking that there is some deep state, whether it be Pizzagate, whether it be adrenochrome, whether you name it, all rooted in anti-Semitism, all rooted in anti-Muslim rhetoric, xenophobia, whatever it might be. These are all the things that have influenced the electorate. And now we've got to claw it back, because I used to think prior to this election, and I still do think this way, that's the idealist in me, that there are more people in our country that do believe in the preservation of human rights, that do believe in women's rights to their body, that do believe in overfunding public education. They just didn't show up to vote. That's the worst part. And whether that's the pearl clutching on the left or the entitlement that falls to the left, not that the right doesn't have it as well, but they just didn't show up to vote. So that's this
Well,
challenge that we now face, right?
yeah, and the projections, yeah, and I think that's one of the projections of that, like you're saying, the numbers I was going through of where we're projected to end up when the votes are actually counted is that Trump actually, it's not so much that Trump had some huge turnout. Like he had, so around the same turnout he had last time. It's
Yeah,
more, he benefited most from the non-turnout. Like
correct.
that's what it was. It wasn't that he had like some great turnout. He benefited from people staying home. And that's what we need to think about. Like how are we going to motivate people? Cuz and I talk about this is, well, I'll say this online for the first time. I said this to many people behind the scenes on election day and before election day. I didn't think that we were going to win Arizona. I was deeply entrenched in that campaign. I was
Yeah.
on the trail. And what I thought to myself is, hopefully it's different in Pennsylvania. Hopefully it's different in Michigan. Hopefully it's different because there was a disconnect that I felt like I could feel. People weren't resonating, and I think that's a nuanced answer. I think there's many answers as to why, but yeah, psychosocially there's studies. There's a long way from supporting a candidate, from saying I support Kamala Harris, from saying I registered to vote for Kamala Harris, and showing up at the polls. There is a huge gap between those two things, and that's what we have to think about. What do we change to bridge that gap?
Yeah, I mean, and this is another example of the danger that Russian propaganda has done to our society because we do know that Russia. We do know that Russia's interfered with numerous elections. We do know that the Mueller report provided a lot of that evidence. So they were able to sow doubt in the election. And people on the left thought, well, the doubt was going to come from MAGA voters when Trump lost again. Lo and behold, he wins the election. And now people on the left are now saying, there's election interference. It's the Starlink satellites, even though the voting machines are not connected to the internet. They're not connected. So it's all this kind of stuff.
I didn't even
that,
hear that one. I never.
oh yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
didn't hear that until right now.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know
Oh yeah.
about
I
that.
had to slap down last week a few people that were just going down that conspiracy roll. And I reminded people it's facts still matter, not rumors still matter, not innuendo, not supposition. It's so until we have evidence of actual criminality, nefarious activities, what it might be, then we can talk about it. But this is another example of sowing doubt in the American electorate. Again, the demoralization, civil unrest, right? All these crises, all this kind of stuff, it's happening right in front of us, right in
Well,
front
and
of
think
us.
about we were watching the richest man in America buy the most
The world.
prolific social media news platform. I mean, sorry, in the world, buy the most prolific news media platform, use it to spread propaganda, misinformation, allow foreign agents to do the same on that platform, and spend at the end what was he spending? Was it he's giving out $1 million a
Million
day,
bucks.
even in
Just
swing states,
just buying votes, no
outside of
big
what the
deal.
PAC is spending? Yeah, and we watched that in real time. We still don't have the final campaign finance reports. We won't know until, quarter when the final campaign finance reports come out what Elon Musk. Yeah, like here's as far as the blue and on like the conspiracy stuff, I'll say this. This is my positive look on it, or what when I thought about it a lot, like why is this happening? You know, I think that it's the stages of grief, right? Especially for women, because women are in a situation where lives are on the line, right? So, and when you're going through the stages of grief, it can't be real. It must be a conspiracy. That's the bargaining stage.
Right.
You're in complete disbelief, and you are just like, no, this can't be real. There has to be some other explanation, right? So I don't think it's natural human behavior, but like what I know is me spending time on that stuff will not change anything, right? Like I
Mm.
said, I was raised by a malignant narcissist. I have a lifetime of experience resisting a malignant narcissist, and I know how to do it. And it's not to dwell on the past. It's not to dwell on what happened yesterday, because I know I have nothing to do with outcome determinative fraud. I don't own a consulting firm that can pour over data. I'll leave that to the people who do, and I'm going to focus on what's next. I'm going to focus on what I can control and building a resistance and giving women hope at an outlet to have conversations and to find these cracks, when women have these moments of, wait, what's going on? And be there, in those moments.
I just got a notification that I got to do a little capitalisming. So I need to end a little early today. But before we do, I want to thank you immensely for being here. This is great. So if you want to come back and do this again, I would love to have it. And I know the audience reacted very strongly to having you here today. So as we like to do, a tradition around here is anybody who's on the panel as we wind down the show, last words. So what are your last words for the day today, Felice?
Just okay. So I'll be doing news show in a couple hours at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Come join if you want to learn the latest of what happened over the weekend with MAGA. I think knowledge is power. So that's my goal, is to give people knowledge. Also, if you come, you can join we'll get you a link to join the Discord. All of the clips and all of the articles, all the collateral I put together, I put in the Discord. Cause I think the gift I can give people as a teacher is arm people with the truth and give people peace of mind. So that's the goal. If you're a woman or an ally, men are absolutely welcome. And we want you, please come tomorrow to Mandy and Danny and I first show. It's a working title, but we're thinking something like maybe the broadcast. Get it?
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
I know, or the F word, like feminism. I don't know. We play around with a lot
I
of
like them
titles.
both.
There's so many funny. Yeah, there's so many funny ones. I don't know, but we're thinking about it. Come tomorrow. Let's see. It's 12 p.m. Central Time, so that's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. If you want to be part of that, and yeah, my goal is just to figure out, and for you and I to work together as much as possible as well. I immensely enjoyed this. I love your brain. I've told you this a million times, but
Same.
I think that this is, we have a lot of synergy here and a lot of opportunities to grow and change and work together. So I hope we can in the future. And just like you guys appreciate me, these communities, you guys are my family, right? I never had a family until TikTok. So I'm not going to cry, but I appreciate you guys.
Don't cry. We appreciate you too. And again, please, if you don't follow Felice, first of all, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm sure everybody here does. We'll be looking for her clip show later. We'll be looking for her awesome, whatever you're going to brand it. I love the broadcast. I think that's great. I love that one.
I know,
Grab them by the broadcast or something like that.
Oh,
by the
wait,
way,
you know what Danny came up with? Pegging the patriarchy.
That's fabulous. Yeah, that's been going around a lot. I know Kristen talks about that quite a bit. Killshot Kristen, she talks about that. We're gonna rate our friend Doug. So Doug is live. You guys know Dougie. Everybody go check out Doug. We're gonna rate him. But I want to thank everybody for being here. And again, a cautionary tale, right? We talk about Russian propaganda because it's really, really important. You see it every single day. Hopefully, what you learned from us today is just an example of what it is that we're talking about and why it's so important to be on the lookout for it. And white women in particular, we're looking at you. We really see you as an opportunity to help us, the collective us, push back against some of this stuff so that we can influence the next generation, because we know Gen Z did not show up at this election. I'm not surprised by that. A lot of loud voices, a lot of activism, but when the time came, they didn't show up. And we know that young men, by and large, tend to lean right. Our world is becoming more radicalized. Our world is leaning more right. And if we want to stand for the things that truly matter, human rights, the preservation of democracy, free thought, women's rights to their body, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, now's the time. We can't wait. Thank you, mods. Thank you, Felice. It's been an honor. I'm sure I'll see you later. And then everybody, if not, I'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time.